So here we are, another Grand Prix down, another day closer to the end of the season, but more importantly, another day closer to when Mercedes must bite the bullet and make a decision on who will be replacing Lewis Hamilton for 2025. And whoever does fill those shoes will have a monumental task in picking up where Hamilton has left off. And after all, like him or not, he is a personality that transcends Formula One, and he is leaving one hell of a legacy behind. But also, it's down to Mercedes to decide what they do. Do they try and manufacture Hamilton 2.0, or do they give time to let a new superstar emerge organically? That is if, though, they have the right car underneath them. And this is where Toto Wolff and co need to have their heads firmly set in reality and realise what is happening in Mercedes right here, right now, and not 3, 4, 5 years ago. Do they go with a young driver and set up a long-term investment, or do they go with a short-term fix until a better solution emerges? But before we do, please click that little button below and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support so far, so let's keep this thing going. So right now, along the spinning wheel of experienced drivers who are supposedly in the running for that Mercedes seat, the name that keeps reappearing from the young driver's side is 17-year-old Formula 2 driver Andrea Kimi Antonelli. And by the way, yes, his parents did name him after Kimi Räikkönen. Now, if you're looking towards the future, looking to build long-term and want to build this whole new Mercedes dynasty off the back of what's currently happening with the car and current performance, I believe that Kimi Antonelli is well worth considering. But why him though? Well, he was very impressive in his F1 test, he showed great maturity, but quite importantly, if Mercedes don't hire him, then someone else will. I mean, just look at Mercedes when they decided not to bring a 16-year-old Max Verstappen on board, who looks red-faced now. But on the basis of Antonelli making his debut with Mercedes, he can be locked down with a long-term contract. And if the hype and pace is to be believed, well, that should pay off in later years with wins and maybe even a world championship. And so you ask, what's stopping Mercedes from doing all of this? Why haven't they confirmed him already? Well, it's the what if they crash from the lead or a vital point scoring position and cost the team a place in the standings and also millions of dollars. And also make the team look bad and also the decision makers who initially believed in him look stupid. And that's not just Mercedes, all teams face this. So if you don't like the sound of that, what's the alternative? You bring in an experienced driver, ideally one who knows how to win, very much a plug-in and play kind of driver, and will give you a smoother transition as possible. And whether you believe the media, candidates such as Carlos Sainz, Esteban Ocon and Valtteri Bottas are all in consideration. Now, whilst hiring a young driver has its unknowns and risks and glaring pitfalls, to a degree the same can also be said for hiring experienced race winners. Experienced race winners are more expensive and also more demanding. They can bring bad habits, bad attitudes, possibly a resistance to integrate, and a question of, do they have both feet on board? Are they fully committed to the team? Daniel Ricciardo, I think, is a great example of seeking out to hire experience only for it to backfire. Each of his drives at Renault and McLaren began with a sense of optimism and a feeling that he's going to bring the team back to winning ways. But from what we're told, it was more like a case of him going around Renault and McLaren factories just going, this isn't how we used to do it at Red Bull. Now, where Mercedes are right now in the pack, I sense will absolutely affect the decision that they make. Because let's get real here, Mercedes are top of the midfield right now, at best. If all the Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren cars finish the race, Mercedes don't have a hope in getting onto the podium, at least not without a massive upgrade package anyway. Also, there doesn't seem to be any big words or predictions on the performance for next season. It looks like it's going to be more of the same, so I do wonder, does this give Mercedes an opportunity to perhaps try something a little bit different next season? An opportunity which may not come around again. And what I mean is that Mercedes are now isolated in 4th place in the constructors' standings. Not much chance of a podium in an uneventful race, and definitely no chance of a win. Now, what I'm saying is that next season would be a great chance, if things continue as the way they are, to give Antonelli a chance, at least while the team is out of the spotlight. As there are no sign of miracles for 2025, it's not like Antonelli would be throwing away wins or podiums if he gets it wrong, for example. I sense it's a great chance for him to learn his craft by chipping away at point scoring positions and fast track his growth. Because with where Mercedes are now, there is no need to go to Williams to do your work experience anymore. There isn't going to be this work, cut your teeth and then get this massive graduation to glory like there was suggested before. The gap between Mercedes and Williams has gotten smaller, and this is mostly thanks to Mercedes. Now, if Mercedes were in the top 4 every weekend just like before, absolutely bring in an experienced head like Sainz Sainz or Bottas just to seal the deal and help bring home the championship in an uneventful manner. Because 3, 4, 5 years ago, when Mercedes were dominating, the only safe way they could give their future investment George Russell an outing was through a Williams drive. They just couldn't risk their position. During those years, anything other than a 1-2 position was seen as a failure. The expectations were just far too high. Bringing in Russell early could have upset the balance, which could lead to accidents and DNFs, and ultimately make the team look like they've made a bad decision, which is exactly what's trying to be avoided here. By the way, I do think George should have been brought in a season earlier, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. But also, Toto Wolff has to be realistic about what his expectations are for a young driver making his debut. Now, if his purpose is to slot in alongside Russell and fight for wins in an undeniably fast car, then perhaps maybe Antonelli is not the man. At least not yet, anyway. However, if the expectations are to fight in the healthy part of the points and take full advantage if a Red Bull, Ferrari, or McLaren have issues or can't finish the race, then I think Antonelli could do that, and he would be well within the realms of possibility. Now, I'm not saying they should accept reality and give up. What I mean is that accept what's happening right now, own it, grow, and climb back up the grid. Exactly the sort of word soup that Toto Wolff serves us every weekend. Oh, we need to grow and learn lessons and make sure we improve, and this is not good enough, and we are better than this, and we are world champions, and everything. But with a lineup of Russell and Antonelli, that is a lineup that you can have for the next 3 to 4 years and a solid foundation to build the new Mercedes Formula One team on. Actually, I say that, but Russell could pose some interesting questions in the next couple of years, because the Mercedes team he finds himself at right now isn't exactly what he was sold on the menu, and I'd probably like to do a video on this at a later stage. But the big thing here is that Mercedes and all its owners will want a new Hamilton replacement on and off the track ASAP. And if it's notoriety and clicks and headlines and all that sort of stuff they wanted to have, there were some pretty big names they could have gone after. From the Hamilton to Ferrari announcement, and only up until recently, there were names like Verstappen, Alonso, and even Vettel banded around. These may have been rumours, but you never know, conversations may have been had. But even if any of those names had signed, none of them would ever be seen as a Mercedes driver, but more like a driver who drove for Mercedes, if that makes any sense. So with them out of the picture, you're left with the next rung of drivers which are available, in this case such as Sainz, Bottas and Ocon. Now all those drivers have their strengths and weaknesses, but I sense that Mercedes are just prolonging the problem and will have to return to this issue of finding this Hamilton replacement in, 2 or 3 years, if they went down this road, of course. Now, Mercedes did crush Bottas over the years, and calling him back would be a nice way to give him some recognition, but if he's struggling to get a new contract at Sauber and looking more and more disinterested, then surely the answer has already presented itself. And then you have Esteban Ocon, who is a quick and great driver when he wants to be, but appears to clash with everyone he works with. And also I sense that himself and Russell wouldn't work and gel well together, and that has risked to divide the team. And then after those, you're left with Carlos Sainz, who is the obvious choice if you are after compatibility and speed, but I sense that his loyalty may not be there. I think if a door opened again at Ferrari or even Red Bull, he would jump, especially if Mercedes are still having problems. And so this is why Kimi Antonelli presents the best solution for the Mercedes team that we find right here in 2024, and also likely the team that we're going to find in 2025. And by Mercedes signing him as well, all he will know of being a Formula One driver is through that team. There will be no preconceived notions or opinions of how it was done elsewhere, or these guys might have done it better or something like that. Because you have to remember, putting this sort of responsibility on a driver who will just be 18 at the time of his debut is a huge ask. But he's shown us through the testing and also the feedback that we've seen in the media that he's hungry, he's keen, and he really wants to show the team what he can do. And if signing him does pay off like I think it might, to the people up at Mercedes, it will be seen as a stroke of genius. Just like when Ron Dennis promoted Hamilton at McLaren, or like Max Verstappen when he was given his debut when he was a toddler. But then again, and I'm going to flip this around now, 2025 is going to be a very strange season. It's only 1 year before the regulation changes, so this does pose the question, would making your debut in a car that requires a different driving style that will be irrelevant the following year do more harm than good? And with that in mind, I know what I said earlier on, but would it be worth Mercedes signing Bottas just for one season, just to get through 2025 and then start Antonelli fresh with the new regulations on an equal playing field, the same as everyone else in 2026. And Bottas, I'm sure, would be welcomed back by the Mercedes team, but it's down to him if he still has that drive and motivation to be there, let alone to be back in that Mercedes environment, which gave him clearly plenty of issues years before. It's just a topic that still has so much to unpack, and we probably won't hear the full story until Hamilton, Toto Wolff and Bottas are all retired and no longer involved in the sport. At the end of the day, Hamilton's move could not have come at a worse time for Mercedes, especially when you consider the regulation changes that are coming up. And it's how Mercedes will respond to this. Will they be judged moving forward? Are they going to be reactive and perhaps play it safe and sign an existing driver? Or proactive in signing Kimi Antonelli and making a strong, confident statement about themselves and the future? So do let me know what you think Mercedes should do in the comments, and also don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed. As always, I'm Paul, and I'll see you later. Cheers.